So I'm just going to ask Leanne to come up and join me here, and we'll talk a little bit about what makes a good life. So I'm assuming everybody knows Leanne Fenez, who is our Director of Special Projects, but before that, she, for many years, was the Director of Community Residential Program. So, Leanne, can you've been seconded to work half-time with Abilities Manitoba, and Abilities Manitoba is all the service organizations out there, right? I think there's, how many that are part of that?
We're at about 80 out of, there's about 96 service agencies across Manitoba, okay. And Abilities has about 80.
So about 80 different organizations that Leanne's working with, and that the government is kind of paying her to do this project. So can you tell everyone here what quality framework means and what this project is kind of all about?
For sure. So the project is really, it was developed out of a recognition that all service providers really care about quality. We're all interested in being sure that what we're doing is having the impact that we desire. But it's a little bit harder to actually know what does that mean when we're working with human beings. How do we actually measure that? How do we know that the outcomes are present? So I think when if you're a service that provides, or a company that makes cars, that's really, I think we all could probably agree on what makes a good car and what perhaps makes a lemon, right? But when you think about the work that we do here at St.Amant, or perhaps in all of the other service agencies, it's a little bit more complex. It's definitely about doing the right thing, but it's more importantly doing the right thing the right way. So, and to dig into that a little bit more, each person would define right in a different way. So we really need to know more about how each person we support would define that sort of in their own way. So the project itself is a partnership, as you mentioned, through Abilities Manitoba and the Department of Families. More specifically, the Department of Community-Related Disability Services, which is the major funder for our community programs. And really it had kind of four main goals. The first one is really developing some agreement on what is a good life, what is the sort of goal of all of our services, and what exactly does that look like. But more importantly, and sort of the second point is, or the second deliverable, is how do you measure that? So creating, identifying a way in which we could, across the province, in a consistent way, measure the impact, the experience that people are having, and their quality of life. Thirdly, it was to develop a set of basic or best practice standards or guidelines, if you will, on a bit of a how-to guide on how to give good service. It really was designed to look at creating a roadmap so that we all kind of had a North Star to work towards. We know that in many service areas, like our residential supports in the community, we have a minimum standard. But we were really interested in looking at what should we be shooting for. And then lastly, the last sort of deliverable or project goal was creating a framework or a way in which agencies can all work together to improve our services. And so I think we've all experienced where we know that there is something that we want to, whether it be in our department or service area or in our own organization, there's something that we know we need to do better. And so we get to work and we do that. But we do it in silos, we do it without necessarily reaching out and finding what other people are doing. And that's what I heard over and over and over again as I went around the province, is particularly in rural Manitoba that lots of small rural agencies really feel very alone, and they could really benefit from just working together and collaborating. So creating a framework to do that was one of the last goals.
Okay. And you visited how many agencies when you went around the province?
So we started, I started the project really by wanting to know where we're starting from. What right now what are service providers doing to measure quality or to understand their impact on services? And so I did go out originally and have one-to-one conversations with about 60 organizations. So.
What's been the process over the last year? That's those visits, right? And then where's the project at today?
So what our process was, as I mentioned, I went out and I talked to service providers sort of one-on-one, and wanted to understand not just how they measure, but also, get an opportunity for them to inform the project a little bit. And what would they worry about, perhaps, when they think about this? What do they hope for? So that we sort of started with that in mind. But then, I think it was mentioned in the video, I had the really blessed opportunity to travel around the province, and we went to 7 different communities up north and around and throughout the province. And we talked to people with lived experience, people who receive services, their families, and service providers, and really asked sort of those 2 questions. What is a good life for you? And what do you need from service providers to live that good life? So those sort of 2 questions really shaped those focus groups. And we had 3 separated focus groups in every community so that people had a safe space to share. And what Health in Common, which is a not-for-profit organization that does evaluation here in Winnipeg, they helped us kind of take all of the information that we learned and synthesize it into a report, and then we ultimately created a plain language version of that report, which we really have used as kind of the foundation of the project. We also reached out to, through government, we looked at a jurisdictional scan. So we tried to look at what all the other provinces and territories are doing around quality measurement. So what is working and maybe what isn't working, so that we could learn from that. And then finally, kind of the other main piece of work was really looking at best practice research and the standards that are available to shape service delivery, so to tell us what we should be doing. We looked at a number of outcome measurement tools, so really just a way to understand if people are living good lives, but to do so in a consistent, kind of reliable, valid way. And we looked at all of those tools that are appropriate for people with intellectual disabilities and autism, and ultimately we are recommending the use of one tool.
Yeah, so I know you and I have talked, and that you've been with St.Amant for quite a few years, and to be able to share your expertise with others from my perspective is awesome. But some of the things that Leanne has said to me is that, she's very proud to have worked for our organization, because although we do at times, we're not perfect by any means as a service provider. I don't think we've ever said we are. But we do a really good job, and that there are lots of organizations out there, many smaller than us, for instance, that can really benefit from this project. I think we can too, but I think they will really, really benefit, and we could probably potentially see the quality of everybody's services go up through this project. So I think it could have a very substantial impact, and I think you should all be proud that the province has chosen Leanne from our organization to actually lead this. It says something about not just her, but where she comes from too. So we've talked about what makes a good life. You talked about it on the, right? You talked about a good job, feeling part of your community, having a chance to have meaningful relationships, romance, all of the things that everybody else wants in their life. And so when we talk about good life, that's it. And then we're actually going to try and kind of measure how we're doing at that, right? Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about what the recommendations are going forward?
For sure. So we have a number of recommendations. I'll kind of hit maybe the high points. We are very hopeful that we've sort of synthesized all of what we've come up with, and we'll provide a final report to the Deputy Minister, who is kind of the project sponsor for this work, and in fact that will be going next week. So we're sort of nearing the end. But the recommendations are that there be a phase 2, that there's lots of more work to be done. And the first, really important piece is that we are recommending that the outcome measurement tool that we've suggested be sort of test driven a little bit, and to look at a pilot with about 5 to 6 agencies, large, medium, small, rural, and urban, agencies that provide a kind of a diverse model of service, so employment, residential, because all of this has to apply to all services that are funded through CLPS. So it does have to be adaptable to the different models. But that we would do a pilot that would test drive that outcome measurement tool, and to really sort of get the kinks out so that we could then replicate it across the province. But ultimately, we're hopeful that we're obviously successful in that, and that would be adopted. We also want to be sure that the leading practice guidelines are jointly released and endorsed. So not just released maybe by abilities, but that in partnership with the province, that they would endorse the guidelines, and really work with abilities to be sure that all agencies, not just abilities agencies, but all agencies, regardless of whether their members would really be supported to look at the standards. And part of that means, a self-assessment workbook that helps agencies really look at their own services and say, where are we, and where are the areas that we really need to improve. We are recommending that a plain language guide is created out of the guidelines so that people who are served have a really good understanding of what they can expect from service providers, and that would be helpful to families as well. We're wanting to be sure that the leading practice guidelines have a formal and ongoing process to be renewed and revised, because leading practice is only leading practice now. As we learn more, and we need to make sure that they're ongoing. So we have a number of, we of course have quite a bit of recommendations related to training, because you don't improve your services unless you give people the tools and the knowledge to be able to act in the way that we hope. So.
And earlier on, I'm just going to kind of connect some dots here. We talked about wages, for direct service workers. Well, if we can tell the story of the how challenging the work is, and how complex it is, and what's involved, and what training is required, it helps us in the argument of that people should be paid better too. So, can you talk? Are there any next steps that you have that you want to share? Or?
Well, as I mentioned, the final report and the sort of final draft of the guidelines will go to our steering committee. There's been a variety of sort of forums and groups of people who have really helped along the way. But ultimately, the steering committee will receive that, and we're very hopeful that we'll know as early as next week on sort of what will happen. But in particular, one of the things that sort of just to wrap up this phase of the project, we had promised and are committed to going back out to the 7 sort of different communities and share what we came up with. We want to be sure that what we did come up with, people can sort of hear where we landed, and hopefully we can gather some feedback on, did we hit it? Did we not hit it? Where did we tweak, and those types of things. So that'll be kind of wrap it up. But again, we're really hopeful that there will be an ongoing investment from the province in this work.
Good. Okay. Can I ask you to thank Leanne for getting up here and doing the interview today? Thanks very much. Okay. So I think, everyone, that concludes our town hall for today.